You finish typing a careful prompt for a hero image. You check the parameters, and you hit generate. And then you wait. 8 seconds, maybe 12. It's that tiny electric pause right before the result appears on your screen. When the 4 images finally render, you do what millions of other people do every single day. You quickly scan the grid for the one that is almost what you wanted, you bypass it entirely, and you immediately click Reroll. UX researcher Kuhn argues that this sequence is not a harmless quirk of new technology. The dominant interaction pattern of consumer generative AI operates using the exact same mechanical loop as a casino slot machine. That small loading sequence matters. It subconsciously snaps you out of the analytical mindset of a professional using a utility and drops you straight into an emotional, highly repetitive behavioral loop. To understand how this works, look at a standard command line interface. The contract between you and the machine was deterministic. You input a specific command, you get the exact same output every time. AI generation breaks this contract. From a single prompt, the machine branches into unpredictable paths. Instead of a guaranteed result, you face response uncertainty. You are essentially throwing words at a spinning wheel, guessing what the software hands back. You can no longer trust that your specific, deliberate action will yield a reliable, tool-like response. Removing predictability isn't a sophisticated design choice. By replacing a reliable workflow with an uncertain payoff, these interfaces actively weaponize unpredictability. They are built to keep you clicking, rather than helping you finish your task efficiently. The science behind why this captures our attention goes back to 1957. Psychologist B.F. Skinner tested how different reward schedules affected pigeons. He found that a variable ratio schedule, where a reward arrives after an unpredictable number of attempts, created a behavior that was almost impossible to extinguish. Decades later, neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered that our brains do not actually release dopamine when we receive a good reward. We get a dopamine spike when a reward is surprising, a phenomenon known as reward prediction error. Predictability stifles dopamine. Surprise creates it. And then researcher Kent Berridge proved that the brain's motivational pull, the wanting to do something, operates entirely independently from the hedonic satisfaction, or liking, of the actual reward. You can desperately want to hit a button again without actually enjoying the prize you just received. Stack these concepts together, and they map flawlessly onto the AI generation cycle. You write a prompt and wait on a variable schedule, experience a prediction error when unpredictable images appear, and hit reroll because the interface stimulates wanting over liking. Combining these specific psychological triggers perfectly replicates the exact behavioral blueprint of a Las Vegas slot machine. We have quietly imported this compulsive loop into the daily productivity tools of millions of knowledge workers. This loop is further reinforced by the economic plumbing of generative tools. They typically run on a token-based pricing model, meaning you are billed for both the text you send and the unseen output you eventually receive. Software companies mask this financial expenditure by abstracting the costs into terms like credits, GPU minutes, or fast requests. By distancing the user from the actual money being spent, these credits function exactly like chips on a casino table. Then the IKEA effect traps you.
Behavioral economics shows that people overvalue things they spend time assembling. Once you invest 20 minutes building a complex text prompt, you are highly invested. You will accept a slightly flawed output, and you will continually spend more credits to nudge it across a finish line that keeps moving. Metered scarcity is not a technical necessity. Software could easily charge a flat monthly subscription. Pricing per generation is a deliberate architectural choice designed to align your continuous spending with the vendor's revenue model. Researchers are starting to measure the psychological fallout. Early clinical studies have already developed a generative AI dependency scale, and recent data shows that response uncertainty, not knowing what the model will return, directly triggers cognitive fatigue. But the clinical literature is in its infancy. We do not yet have the decade of longitudinal data that researchers gathered to prove the addictive qualities of social media feeds or video game loot boxes. We do, however, have precedent. A decade ago, figures like Tristan Harris and former social media executives publicly admitted that tech platforms were intentionally designed to exploit vulnerabilities in human psychology to maximize engagement. While the clinical diagnosis of AI addiction is still a hypothesis in progress, The mechanical evidence of a slot machine UI on your desktop is indisputable. We have the data to understand the behavioral risks right now. Product teams shouldn't wait for regulatory proof to start fixing the design. The path forward already exists in human-centered AI experience, or HAX, principles. Applying these guidelines allows developers to structurally retrofit AI products, replacing passive automation with tools that actually augment human agency. Take the principle of transparency. A responsible interface must show you the explicit financial cost and the historical variance of similar prompts before you click the Generate button. This breaks the illusion of infinite free spins. Then there's real control. The friction-free full-image reroll button needs to go entirely. Instead, give the user targeted, region-specific editing tools and parameter sliders. Make the iteration unit smaller than the whole output. When a prompt fails, the interface should practice graceful failure. A bad output should be treated as teachable data, revealing exactly why the prompt fell short, rather than serving as an excuse to quickly spin the wheel again. Applying these principles completely shifts the user's mental model. You stop acting like a passive gambler hoping for a jackpot, stepping back into the role of an active co-author in control of a draft. If you build these tools, you can run a quick slot machine audit right now.
Look for friction-free rerolls, hidden credit costs, full output regeneration, and product dashboards that report active session time as a measure of success. The ethical responsibility to push back against these engagement-driven mechanics falls directly on designers and product managers during kickoff and review meetings. If the software industry fails to self-regulate, history shows us exactly what happens. Products that engage users by exploiting known neurobiological mechanics eventually face the same court-ordered regulatory warnings applied to cigarettes and digital loot boxes. The slot machine mechanics in generative AI are already embedded in our daily workflows. The people building these tools face a binary choice: actively dismantle the mechanisms today, or pretend you didn't notice the trap being laid.